take time, focus and it'll be fine, girl.
How do you do? This is Stuart Ford from Stuart Ford Fitness and Martial Arts Instruction. Today's date is Wednesday the 3rd of June 2020, and this is the third week of my live intro series for my online training called Coach in a Box. And today we are doing a rehab in a box. Okay, so we've covered two series so far, or two episodes so far, and this episode we're going to look specifically at issues with the shoulder. So that's with the front shoulder here, the lateral shoulder here, the upper trapezius, and also the shoulder blade area here. Okay, so common aches and pains that we get here, or trigger points as we call them, could be something in the upper trapezius here. It could be the front of the arm in here, maybe a little bit on the outer arm here, outer shoulder, and it could also be something around the medial scapular area here, or indeed the whole scapula really, but most common areas really are the medial scapula here, and also the front shoulder. And there's particular reasons for this. Why is a difficult one to fathom, but we're going to start by saying it could be an issue with a posterior chain, which means that when we move the arm up into a flexion position, this action is antagonizing certain muscles, causing those trigger points and pain. But that can be, the reasoning behind that can be various ones. But I'm going to hit what I've seen as being some of the most common reasons for that, and a good kind of a general fix for those areas. Okay. So yeah, we're talking about shoulder pain. We're talking about upper back pain. We're talking about maybe even upper chest pain, but this often we don't feel until we start probing around. And we're talking movement wise about flexion of the shoulder, maybe and or abduction of the shoulder, lateral here. Okay, you get people sometimes with what we call frozen shoulder or adhesive capsulitis, where this is adhesive capsulitis, sorry, this is where we have sort of a sticky amalgamation of material around the shoulder joint. It gets gluey, and this causes issues in flexing the arm and abducting the arm, and often people can't even get the arm up to sort of a 90 degrees height here, with the arm parallel to the floor. So this can cause obviously a lot of issues with work, general tasks, anything overhead. So what can we do to remedy this? Well, there's a few things that I try to look at. One of them is the muscles that are responsible for taking the arm up into the air, so lifting the arm up. So flexors of the shoulder joint, and this isn't just stuff to do with the shoulder here, this is the shoulder blade and how the shoulder blade moves as well, or the scapula. So rotation of the scapula, as the scapula sits on the back of the ribs here, and the arm lifts, whether it's forwards or out to the sides, the shoulder blade is going to kind of rotate on its axis. So it slides, so say that your ribs are coming across on your back like this, and the shoulder blade sat on top here. As your arm moves up into the air, the shoulder blade slides up the rib cage like this, and that's moving laterally away from the midline. Okay, so that has to be able to move for one, as well as your shoulder needs to be able to move in its socket. So we've got the muscles that lift the arm into the movements, and then we've also got the antagonizing muscles, and the antagonists are the muscles which do the opposite, which basically pull the arm back down into extension of the arm, extension of the shoulder. So we want to look at how to interact with these muscles. And what we're going to do first is we're going to focus on the muscles actually that flex the arm, because as much as the muscles that stretch don't like to stretch for some reason, the muscles that contract and bring the limb or whatever it's supposed to be doing into its place don't like to contract. So the filaments in the fibres are struggling to come together. And then the joint, because the joint sort of gets stuck in a limited range of motion, we get dysfunction. We can get dysfunction in both those movements, up and down. But we want to look at least both the muscles anyway, the agonist and the antagonist. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to look at the front of the shoulder here. So this is where often people get pain. And what I've come to understand from this and think's one of the most prevalent things is the long head of the biceps tendon gets inflamed, and that sits in a groove on the shoulder here. Okay, there's a little knobbly groove in the top of the humerus, and that tendon comes over the top of that and has to sit in that groove. That can pop in and out of that groove from time to time, which will cause inflammation, and at least it gets thickened as well. So the tendon itself will get thickened and swollen as it gets inflamed, often because it's moving, sliding up and down, slightly forwards or slightly back, usually forwards, and sitting more on a knobble rather than sitting comfortably in its groove. So we can just start with massage into that. Okay, I mean, if you want to, if you've got an ache and a pain, you'll probably know that anyway. But you can always check your range of motion. Listen to any clunking and clicking. I tend to get a little bit in my right shoulder. I can get some issues with this. So you can check your shoulder movement and see what that feels like. What's the range of motion like? Where does it feel like it goes to? Where does it feel uncomfortable? And then, so we can then start with this area. If area you get pain or not, then we're going to have a little feel anyway. So you can just kind of have a little probe in this area. So I'm just kind of palpating the fingers up and down. So move a bit closer to the camera there. And I'm just listening to that area. And you can always just start by massaging this, so don't be afraid to have a little go with massaging yourself. I'm just using the flats of the fingers rather than the ends, the pads, if you like, with the fingers. And I can use this just to circle and massage. If you feel it feels tender, feels inflamed, then work with that. Try to find the areas that are tender rather than just shying away from it. But we're not really crushing the fibre, and I'm listening for like a string, which is the tendon, which I can flick over laterally a little bit like this, and whether I'm feeling that or I'm feeling the deltoid muscle, the shoulder muscle fibres as they come down, I'm not really too concerned. They're one sitting on top of the other and they're all crossing over, so I'm just looking for that tenderness and releasing that a bit. Now another thing we can do is we can use a tennis ball like this. Okay, so this is going to go into that same area, or it could be, and you have a little probe around, you might find that you've got something more laterally on the shoulder, one of the lines of the shoulder muscle itself, but we can do a little bit of each. And what we can do is we can use a wall. So we can just come over to a wall like this, place the ball against the wall, and then I can move this up and down and around. Again, I'm not trying to crush the muscle fibres, I'm just trying to encourage them to flatten out a little bit, to ease off. And if you're finding tenderness through just a little bit of pressure like this, then it's a warning sign that something's not quite right. So I'm working that around to try to coax that into releasing a little bit and being comfortable more so with the pressure from the tennis ball. You move it up and down. I'm just steadying the ball here. You have other types of balls. I sometimes use a rubber ball for this kind of thing because it doesn't slip around the wall. But if not, then you can just kind of hold it in place as you're doing this and move that around. I'm going to focus on one side for the release today. And then I'm going to do the exercises with both, okay, just to show you from using both sides, and also it's a good way to put the other one into practice and see the balance between the two sides. So I'm just moving that around so that feels like that's released, and let's let go a little bit more. You can have a little probe and feel it yourself. You might feel a little bit softer, maybe more defined with the muscle fibres as they're broken apart a little bit, separated a little bit. Like the fascia around the outside of fascia is just being cleared a little bit. Okay. So you're doing that with the front of the shoulder here. And you may even get problems further down the arm here as well. Sometimes here in the brachioradialis muscle, as it comes down from the humerus here and joins down onto the wrist. So you sometimes get issues here, and it wouldn't harm either to have a little loosen. So we talk about chains, muscle chains, and as I lift the arm up here, from this point of view, I'm thinking about the upper posterior chain. As I lift the arm up, it becomes more apparent that all of this, back of my arm, the outer arm, then slightly the front here as well, and down the back here, all the way down, it all becomes one chain, one line, and this is all acting to do the same movement. So regardless of whereabouts you've got the issue, you're going to have other issues that accumulate along these chains, okay? So it wouldn't necessarily be in the one spot, and everything is going to end up being a little bit tighter than it was. Something to doing more work has to work harder because one muscle doesn't like doing as much. So we're going to have a little bit of a release on here as well. There's various methods, and you get, with experience of how to massage, you get good with that. But I'm not going to dictate exactly how you do it here. Okay, just releasing off the radialis muscle there. And then you could, to go from that, we go on to talk about stretching next. So I'll kind of release this front line first of all here. And I'm just going to get this used to stretching. It's quite often people that struggle with overhead movements and have some kind of a frozen shoulder issue, if you want to call it that, or whatever the reason may be, they also struggle with extension of the arm as well, anything to do with taking the arm back behind the back here, and you'll notice that often on that side as well. So I've released the muscle to start with there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down onto the floor here, and I'm going to look at stretching that same line. So the way that I've generally been doing these is that we start with the release technique of the massage, separating out the muscle fibres, and then we can go into some kind of a stretch to get that muscle used to lengthening and opening. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm just shifting my bottom forwards here, and notice I can clench the fist, and I'll do this beforehand as well, which just encourages that same line to stretch all the way through to the fingertips. And now I'm focusing the stretch down the front of the shoulder here. And again, getting that just used to stretching, and I'll do that more so. Again, you could have tried this stretch before you started the previous release, and then seen the difference after you've done that. Okay. So I'm just moving around, finding the best lines for that stretch, and then encouraging that a little bit more as I go to open up. I found this is a very sort of simple way of doing this stretch, because you've got the arms nice and anchored on the floor here, and then keeping the elbows dead straight as well. Don't let the elbows bend here. Okay, so about 30 seconds or so, even up to a minute. Dictate how long you do it until you feel like it's eased off. And then you'd feel also that you can maybe get that arm further up the back there. Okay, that reaches further. Okay, so you've got that movement, that muscle group first of all, just eased off a little bit. Now, yeah, I think we'll leave that to there for now. And what we'll do is now I'm going to look at trying to get that muscle moving. So we've stretched it, and now I want that muscle to kind of activate, so the flexing muscles to activate. But I only want to do it to shoulder height to start with, so I've not looked at the antagonist and range of motion. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm just using this position to show you how I can engage my scapula to push forwards and to get my shoulder blades to come forwards. And I'm using muscles like my serratus anterior here and my pectoral muscles to bring the shoulders around the back, because they work better in a flexion motion, lifting up with the shoulder blade coming forwards. So you can use this, and I can just push up and come out of my spine, if you like. So my spine is drooping down and my spine's lifting up. And let this happen with the shoulder blades retracting and the shoulder blades protracting, pushing forwards here. Okay, just to show you how you can sort of use this movement. And then just put one dumbbell here. So I'll show you on the left side here, but I'll use the right arm here as well. So I'm just going to push one hand against the wall and then press that forward, the same as I was just doing on the floor there, to open up and to round the shoulders. And then I can just use this other arm with a light dumbbell to lift up and down. Lift up and down. Now I'm just bringing the upper part of the arm here to parallel with the floor, so it's not going above shoulder height. I'm just bringing it into straightforward flexion at the moment. And what's happening is, because I've got this hand pressing against the wall, I'm rounding the shoulder on the right hand side and encouraging that to protract. And we talked about pulling around the outside of the rib cage. And then as I lift my left arm up, my brain's telling my left side to do the same thing as it's doing on the right side. So it becomes like a bilateral feeling. You're sort of engaging and activating that response in the shoulder blades, and it feels it's easier to get that arm to do this. So again, I'll be doing this then on the right side, just using the left side there to show you. So we'll do both sides anyway. So just lifting up. And again, that little press rounding your shoulder, keep that engaged as you lift here. Just encouraging that to pull forwards, and always nice and slow and controlled. Yeah, don't rush the movement. Feel it moving and working. If you're getting clicking and clunking, you don't really want that to be happening on a long-term basis, on a regular basis. You want to try to be doing the movement without the clicking and clunking. And it's easy to do that if you do it with a slowed down tempo. So it gives your body a chance to try to find the best route through that movement and motion. Okay? A chance for tendons and things which are flicking over joints to just find their alignment as it comes back down into place again. Okay, so we can just start with the one we did here. But you could have also done, if I was pressing on the wall in front here, off out to the side. Now if I'm going out sideways, this is encouraging the shoulder blade to work on its axis, so it's sitting on the back. If you imagine this angle, it's not sitting on the back like this, so it's rolling out like this here. So it's lifting up to the air here. Okay. Okay. So we've got that working up to that height. Now I could also do out to the side here, and it may be you can have as light a weight as you need. I feel this with what we've got here, 2.5 kilograms, and I still feel this within the realms of the issue I have with the shoulder, whereas I wouldn't feel those issues on the other side. And it's not, tiring, but you feel the something's not quite right. There's a little grumble in there. And so you want to work on that, stretching the shoulder away from your body. So it's leading away and keeping the joint nice and open, nice and relaxed. And here we're focusing on the deltoid working as we do the movement. Okay, the shoulder itself here. What I find a lot of people end up doing too much is they use the upper trapezius here, which is one of the reasons the upper trapezius will end up very tight, because that's overworking. So we keep this nice and relaxed. You can keep your fingers on there and feel that's relaxed. And we only want to be going 90 degrees maximum to encourage that to work, okay? And do the same on the other side. And again, it could do these both at the same time. It's nice to feel the difference. Okay. So again, we're going to shoulder height and we're going in both directions. And it wouldn't harm as well. We talked about both muscles becoming dysfunctional. So it wouldn't harm for you to be doing the same kind of thing for your extending muscles, your extension muscles here, which would involve your internal rotator cuff and your extensors, lats, and the posterior shoulder. So as we do in the movement, it's stretching out the front, again, that we've already been working, but more in a dynamic exercising pattern. We can turn the palms back on themselves to lift up as well. So you're just taking that muscle through its paces with very, very small amount of weight, or maybe even lighter. You don't have to use any, you could just do it with without any weight at all, and that makes it easier then for you to find more range of motion, because we're looking for more range of motion as well, not just what it's used to. We wanted to take it a little bit out of its comfort zone, get it used to the muscle completely contracting, completely extending. So that's what we're going to go on to next, then, is more into the extension part by working the antagonists. So what are the antagonists? Everything that's stopping my arm going up into the air here. So that's going to be my lats, latissimus dorsi here. It's going to be my pectorals here, especially the lower fibres of the pec major, and but also, very importantly, is the pec minor. And the pec minor attaches onto the 5th, 6th and 7th rib, I think it is, and then that goes from there up diagonally and attaches onto my coracoid process, which is the front of my shoulder blade. So it travels through and inserts onto my shoulder blade at the back here, and what it will do is it will pull my shoulder up and over the top. So very important for any kind of punching, adducting action with the arms here, protraction with the shoulder here, and bringing over the top. So if I'm bringing my arm back, then this is a definite antagonist for that. And if it's not one of the major causes of it, then it's going to be certainly a muscle which ends up tight and painful because it's so used to being here. And we get a lot of this kind of anterior shoulder issue here, or the upper cross syndrome, which is sometimes known as. And this is getting the opposite of that, is trying to get the shoulders back, and lifting back and opening back. So which one we're going to do first? Well, we'll look at the lats first, and we'll start with the foam roll. Nice soft foam roll for the lats. They can get very inflamed and tender. Often people crush them a little bit too much, so don't go too hard with them. But let's go down here, and again you could be using a rolled up towel here, slightly rolled up towel. You could use it on a rolling pin wrapped around as well, as long as we can get some pressure onto this. So what I'm doing is I'm just opening up the side here, and the lat is going to be running down the side of your ribs, so down the side and towards the back, and clinging down the ribs. That goes all the way down the back and attaches down to the hip. But I'm just looking for that edge of the lat at the moment, so that lateral edge. So I'm keeping the arm stretched out. I'll turn the palm over or even upwards. I'm just searching up and down there, trying to find the most obvious bit, forwards and back. Then once you start honing in on that particular area, you can just slow that down and just bring it to a pause and leave that to release. Okay, so again you could spend longer on there. I'm not going to spend too long, obviously I'm doing the video here. And what I'm going to look at now is going more towards the back part of the lat fibres, and also the rotator cuff, which is sitting on the lower angle of the shoulder blade and under the shoulder blade. And you can come higher up as well here into the back of the shoulder blade, and you'll often find that the muscles that sit on the back of the shoulder blade, the external rotator cuff there, including your teres minor and infraspinatus. Okay, so just moving around on those, opening that up, listening to that stretch, listening to those tender spots. You can get very tender around here, so I'm just making sure that iron out those fibres very, very gently and open that up. Okay, now before I go on to stretching the lat too much here, I'm also going to look a little bit at the pectorals, because if I try to take my arm over the head, it's very, very difficult for me to stretch that with having a restrictive pectoral muscle going. So that's especially the pectoral pec minor, which we discussed earlier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the foam roll again here. I'm going to come down at an angle. So I've got the foam roll, just the edge of it here, resting on the chest. And I'm going to have a little roll around on here. So this has been a bit more generalised, but if you have a little bit of a probe around, I was just starting that off there, but if you have a little bit of a probe around on the top of the chest, again this pec minor's come up like a diagonal here, so you can feel anything on this line here. So just look for that tender, and again you could just use the pads of the fingers here to massage that area, and you can follow right up into the little sort of well up here where it's connected into that coracoid process, front of the shoulder blade, and release those muscles. And you can also again use the tennis ball to do the same area. So you could lie on your front again, you could place the tennis ball into that area, just open up so you've got that clear, so you can get a little bit of body weight onto that and roll that around. And you could also use this against the wall to do the same thing. Okay, so if you're using that on the wall, again I'll place that, we'll do this on this side for you to show you, into that well here. It's got that tennis ball on there, and I'm just getting a little bit of body weight on there and rolling that round. Yeah, you could do it with the arm down as well, and your flexibility, and just moving that around, small movements, and again not pressing too hard. Okay, so once you've got that feeling like that's eased off a little bit as well, the other area talked about the pec major. So if you kind of grab the muscle underneath the arm here, this is the lower pec major, which is stretching up here and connecting onto the top of the humerus here, and so this is it's a definite restriction for any retraction of the arm here, the horizontal abduction, and any overhead work here and flexion. So we can just pinch this here and massage up and down as well here. You can maybe grab a larger bulk of it, and you can work all the way down towards the nipple area. You wouldn't suggest too much squeezing the nipple area itself, but that could be a bit tender. And again, of course, you would be getting this as you're doing the foam roll, maybe not quite as acutely here. So I'm just elongating that out with a pin and stretch. We sort of squeeze and open the arm out, just so that feels like that's getting somewhere. So tennis ball away. So then again, what you want to look at is the stretching of these muscle groups. Now for the lat, just using a little prop here, use an armchair or something like that. So for the lat, we can do this typical sort of chop down position here. Come back away so we're well supported. We want to lift the back so the back rounds, and then just sink the body weight down a little bit onto that arm, but keeping this arm straightening so you can feel this pulling underneath here. So this is one way of doing that. You can do two at the same time. What I like to do as well to follow that line around is to flex the elbow here and then use that same stretch. And again, if I just bring my knees in a little bit to get them underneath my hips, and I can try to go around the back. So the lat now has to stretch all the way over the back, down to the hip. You're just making that the length of the stretch longer. So it's making the lat go further by rounding the back and lifting the spine. And the lat will actually arch the back for you like this. It'll actually extend your spine. Okay, so lift it up here. You really feel that working. Also, I'd like to do as well, both together. Arms, you can do just with the arms here. You can do both with the elbows bent as well. You can do this on a wall as well if it's too much of a. You can sink down and hold your body weight here. Sinking down this way as well means now that my lats, as they're joined in the centre of the back, have to spread across as well as your middle trapezius area. Going to spread across your back here, and this will also cause issues for you. Okay, so this means then I've stretched those muscles in this line, but I also want to stretch them off to the side here. So with a similar stretch, if I just put my arm at a diagonal, and I'm not so much worried about rounding the back now, because I'm now trying to get the pec minor on this diagonal as it lifts up. So I'm bringing the arm back, which makes the shoulder blade roll back. But the change of the arm position means that I hit those fibres rather than my lats, which is because the arm's now a bit more adducted towards the body. So it's lessening the lat a little bit, and you'll feel that change of stretch, and that pain maybe you'll get across the front of your shoulder. And then you can just kind of sink towards the floor and turn a little bit away as well. So there's a pec minor. You know, it's not an exact science. Everyone's going to feel this a little bit differently, and have particular muscles which are causing more issues than others. You could get pec major as well by taking the arm more off to the side and then doing the same thing here. So this is just really with the arm 90 degrees out to the side of the body, and the same thing again. I'm just turning myself away from the arm and sinking down to encourage that stretch. And if I sink my body further towards the floor, I'm actually making the arm externally rotate and lift backwards more as well, so you're getting those internal rotators as well as the chest. Okay, so I'll have to the side. And you can change the height of the arm up and down to find these different lines of the fibres of the pec pectoral muscle. Yeah, so we make sure that backwards and upwards are all being hit nicely. Now there's one other one that we missed earlier, actually, that I forgot to do. We talked about the back here being, so this is like the inner shoulder blade area, often being a cause of issues of pain. And we're talking about the middle and lower trapezius, that pulls down the back. And this goes all the way down into the vertebra, all the way down to T12, so that's all of the thoracic vertebra and the first cervical vertebra. They're all insertion points for the trapezius. It comes down like a kite down the back, the lower trapezius. So what we want to do is we want to get the ball onto those areas. So there's the trigger points, and this area here is going to contract and it's going to pull the shoulder blade up and over as well. So that's one of the muscle groups which is actually doing the movement that we're trying to achieve. So we could have done that in the first place really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find that sort of area where the muscles are all lumped up and bunched up, and often people will find this fairly easy, especially if you do a fair amount of exercise. That muscle just tends to be one that just won't like contracting any further. Maybe because the shoulder blade is slightly off-centered and it's not working correctly. Maybe because there's some kind of an issue you had with that muscle because it was too weak and it got torn or damaged. And then the fibres have been all messed up since. So we can just work around those to release that area. And you can try up and further down, just lifting my hips off the floor and searching that around. As we come more underneath the shoulder blade, so if I came further down, so here we've got the lat, we've also got the serratus anterior down there. And the serratus anterior is the main one responsible for protracting that shoulder blade forwards. So that movement we was trying to do earlier. Certainly I'm feeling that there, tenderness. Just right underneath the shoulder blade, it attaches onto the ribs. You get very inflamed. Okay, so we've stretched that as well. We've done our overhead stretches. The muscles around the back here and the outer shoulder, we can stretch by bringing the arm across the body here, keeping the shoulder pinned down and then pulling across. Okay, just let that relax into that so you can feel that stretch. Feel that coming across the lateral shoulder deltoid. Okay, so we've got all those muscles that are being tense and tight, more loosey-goosey now, but we want to try to build them up into some kind of a movement, some kind of range of movement, range of motion that's not going to inflame them too much. So we want to build into it. Don't go straight into some kind of a heavy weight exercise. Put those off to the side. So we're going to go back to this kind of cog exercise movement. So a bit similar to what we did to start. You could just start in our first session we did. You could just start retracting and protracting the shoulders here like we do in this sagittal cogs movement. But we're going to do them out to the sides, not to hold the arms so they're nice and relaxed to start. And don't try to force them too high. Again, as soon as we start lifting our arms up with our upper trapezius, we're going too far here. So shoulders kept down here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn. Again, I'm doing both sides here. And I think it's better this way because it's making this stretch through the whole of the body. Turn the palms over and pull the fingers back so you're cocking the wrists, and make sure that the shoulders don't come up as you do this movement. So we can just start here, and then we're going to turn back underneath, clench the fists, again to take this line over the top and around the back of the wrists, and then we're going to just turn back over again, and then the palms face away. So pull the fingers down to stretch this front line of the arms and back over. And if you get any this kind of problems, you'll find this tightness down through the bicep. You'll find it tight on the back, you'll find it tight on the front. They'll all get affected and they all become dysfunctional. I'm going to start moving the body with the motion a bit more, so I'm encouraging my ribs and my shoulder blades to move as well. So I'll turn to the side to show you. As I roll forwards, I'm kind of concaving the chest and sucking it in. And as I come back, I'm convexing, lifting the chest out, arching the back, and then sticking the chest out, and then back under, back. The chin comes to the chest, stretch the back of the neck, forwards, and chin up, back and forwards, back and forwards, back and forwards. Okay, and then we can do the same thing, but we can alternate. So now we're encouraging my right shoulder blade to rotate upwards and my left shoulder blade to rotate down as I move. In the previous one, they were both going at the same time. So turn here, palm, and the next one, fist. I'm going to look back towards the fist, and then I'm going to turn the body, and turn. You can see my chest is going the same direction as the arm here. Turn. But the arm's still going further because it's rotating over more than the chest can keep up. Is making the shoulder blade rotate more. And try to listen to those shoulder blades, listening to them sliding on the rib cage. Yeah, I could just hold it in place and just turn the arm, but if I let that rib, the ribs go here and loosen it up underneath the arm, I can feel the shoulder blade turning and pulling in tighter to the rib cage. Going to continue those until they feel like they're limbering up, they're looser, easier to work with. Okay, so again, you do as many of those as you can. Each of these that you do, this type of exercise is like a journey into yourself. It's maybe different each time. So you're just trying to find a nice happy medium where you feel like you've learned something and that you've got further than when you first started. Things are eased up a bit. Okay, so that's working quite nicely. I'm just going to go on to another exercise now, another dynamic movement exercise, again without weight, but looking for a range of motion. So I can just take the arms up at this angle we talked about. It's nice to start with this angle with the shoulder blade where it sits on the back, so it goes at this slanted angle up and then over the back of the head to incorporate again, carry on the stretch going through the tricep and all the way around through that chain, and then back again. And as I come back, I can squeeze as well. So if I show from behind there, as I come backwards, I can squeeze back together. So we talked about the serratus anterior that pulls the shoulder blade into the back and turns it upwards. Okay, so it attaches from the shoulder blade onto the ribs at the front here. And so it lifts up the shoulder blade like this, but you've got two fibres of the serratus anterior, the upper and lower fibres, and the lower fibres bring it up and lift the arm upwards, and bring the shoulder blade in. But as I come back and down, the upper fibres are kind of doing the opposite a bit and bringing the top of the shoulder blade in a bit more here. But as I get to the back of it here, as I start bringing the arm back into extension, the shoulder blade's kind of reversing again. It's pulling, you'll feel the shoulder blade pulling into the body again as you come into this point. So it kind of grips in, rather than carrying on going backwards and winging, the shoulder blade kind of flattens again, pulls flat into the back. So it pulls flat into the back as it comes up, and as it comes down, you might even see it kind of winging a bit here. On my thumbnail over, you can see it kind of winging a bit. But as I carry on pulling back, that sucks back in forwards again and comes away from my thumb. Okay. So it's kind of doing two parts, so I'll do two parts of that exercise. So again, up at those slants, shaping the kind of diagonal, up, over. Again, you can follow through to extend through the range of that posterior chain through the back of the arm. And you may hear some clicking, clunking. Hopefully by now you won't do, but take it as slowly as you need to not to hear that. Yeah, mine's feeling quite good at the moment. I'm not getting any clicking or crunching with the tendons are slipping over the bones and the joints. They're just too tight. Okay. And another thing that I'm doing, need to make sure that we do through all of these exercises really, is engaging the core, engaging the buttocks, and keeping the torso kind of locked in place as I'm doing this. I don't want the back arching. I lift up. I don't want to be arching the back. So it's a little abdominal workout and a butt workout at the same time. Yeah, so there's no losing of that posture. I'm making the shoulders do the work, and the shoulder girdle, the shoulder blades do their movement. Okay, so that's warmed it up nicely and got those used to those movements. And then again, we could get a small weight. It doesn't have to be heavy. It doesn't want to be heavy. Okay, you could use this without a weight still if you think, oh, that's just enough for my arms anyway. But this is nice because it gives you more weight in this the first part of the movement. Okay, so it just gives the muscle something to work with. So I'm just doing these scaption exercises, following that line of the shoulder. And now, because I've done the stretching for the lats and everything else, I'm happy doing this overhead movement. And they're coming up into the air. If you lose my arms off the edge of the screen there, could do this sitting down or kneeling. So you can just see the arms still as they raise up. I'm keeping the arms straight. So I keep that weight on. I'm kind of aiming away from myself as well, so I'm making sure the arms are nice and the joints nice and open and stretching. And you could add in the tricep thing if you wanted. So we can come over and then we use the triceps to bring back over so we have that extra stretch. But initially we are trying to get these to go as high as we can at this point, and you'll get your best movement. The arms are going out at this slanted angle, same again with the scapula, shoulder blade. You're going to get your best movement there, yeah, the highest movement, because there's less impingement on the shoulder joint as it goes through that range of motion. If I do then go on to abductions, for example, so there's another one we do, just keeping the arms nice and stretched down and straight. I'm just gently lifting the arms out and feeling on this side of my right side here, it's more twingy on this on the lateral shoulder as well, the lateral part of the shoulder, and it will complain a bit if it's not warmed up and happy to do this, and it will make it seem like it's very weak in both arms almost, but if you're following by your weakest link, your weakest side. And then as that warms up and gets used to that movement, I'm just taking this to 90 degrees maximum. Now it could be just 60 degrees that you go to. It should be more like down here somewhere. And the shoulder joint's happy to go to that range of motion before the scapula starts to roll up and lift. So here I'm focusing more on just working the deltoid muscle, the shoulder muscle, and just hinging at the shoulder joint before the shoulder blades start to lift and roll out. So as soon as I go past that kind of 60 degrees, the shoulder blades will start to move with that to lift. And I find that keeping this arm posture as well as the elbow facing backwards, if I bend the elbow and it comes in towards my chest like this, and that angle. It shouldn't be going up into the air. A lot of people, because of weakness in the rotator cuff, will lift and the arms will rotate, so the biceps start to turn up into the air. So I find the stronger the stability is, the higher you can go with the arms in this position before they have to turn out. But 90 degrees is plenty. If you wanted to go higher, really, you want to start turning the arms into their more neutral position again. So we can just go to that height. So it's important that we don't lift the shoulder blades and use the upper trapezius. Okay, so we can do the lateral abductions there, and you could also do raising to the front. Then we could turn this way around here and lift straight up. And again, I'm trying to just keep the arms straight, keep the body position neutral so that doesn't fall out of alignment, and come up as high as that will allow. Okay, so again you could do as many of those as it feels the muscles kind of get into overload. It's not a really powerful workout we're doing here. We're just trying to work the muscles until they start to feel like they're worked. You sort of feel like lactic acid pumping into them, and making that quite it tires the muscle out. But we don't want to be doing to failure, not with these kind of movements, and we don't want to be overdoing the speed. Always working nice and controlled and slow. Okay, so I think that's what I wanted to cover today, and hopefully you'll find that something in there is going to make an effect on your various trigger points. Maybe they'll calm down a little bit, they'll get used to the movement at least. So this is the first and most important thing about the rehabilitation, is functionality. So if you're being able to do what you couldn't do before so much, you couldn't get that item off the top shelf, or one of the shelves, even if it's only sort of a little bit higher than it was before, then so if you can manage that now, then you've made an achievement. You might well still be living with pain, and that could be the last thing that goes. It chops and changes with different people, but the functionality is there first of all, and they tend to go hand in hand. So if you can't lift up to pick something off of the shelf, it could well be because you've got that pain. So if you are lifting higher, that could be the reason why you're lifting high, because the body's saying that pain signal isn't there, you're free to go and do that. So as long as you're making some progress in functionality, that's the most important thing. Okay, so again, I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to come in live with the next session, so there's only 1 week left of these sessions, so next Wednesday, then you can contact me via my website address, and then you'll find an email address on there. And the website address coming on the screen now is stuartfordfmai.co.uk. Okay, so have a little look there, and again you'll be able to see what else I do and see if there's anything else that tickles your fancy. So until next time, I'll sign out. Bye for now.
It's gonna take time, focus and it'll be fine, girl.
Trying to figure out how I'ma get out